Now we are in James chapter 3, verse 4. Reading from the King James Bible. Quote, "Behold also the ships, which though they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth." Unquote. Reading from the English Standard Version, quote, "Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs." Unquote. Young's literal translation: "Lo also the ships, being so great, and by fierce winds being driven, are led about by a very small helm, whithersoever the impulse of the helmsman doth counsel." Unquote. So James is talking to the dispersed Jews about how a ship is driven by such a small director, the helm. Now let's do the Greek parsing of this verse. Behold. Let's parse behold. It is in the second aorist tense, which is an imperative verb. It's basically the looking at the action without the regards of the past, present, or future. It's written in the active voice, which represents the subject as the doer, the performer of the action. And it's in the imperative mood, which means that it is a command to the hearer to perform a certain action by the order and authority of the one commanding. So, behold is an active command with no regards to time. Continuing, behold also the ships. The Greek word the ships is only used by our author one time. James continues it in the New Testament later on in Revelation 8 verse 9. Quote, "And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed." Unquote. Luke uses the same Greek word, the ships, twice. Luke 5:3. Quote, "And he entered into one of the ships, which was Simon's, and prayed him that he would thrust out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the people out of the ship." Unquote. And again in Luke 5:7, quote, "And they beckoned unto their partners which were in the other ship, that they should come and help them. And they came and filled both the ships, so that they began to sink." Unquote. Continuing, "The ships which though they be so great," and "so great" is only used by James one time, "and are driven." Let's look at that in the Greek. It's used in the present tense, passive voice, participle mood. So we're talking about something that's being done passively, and it is either with a participle means that either has an ing or ed. In this case, are driven, so it's past tense. Of fierce winds. Now let's look at yet are they turned about. Now that's used by one time by James in the Greek in the New Testament. And it is in the present tense, passive voice, indicative mood. So this is a matter of fact. It's in the present, so it's being done now, and it's being done to the person, not by the person. Yet are they turned about, continuing, with a very small. Now, this Greek word for a very small is only used by James once, and it's used by Paul one time in the New Testament, quoting from the King James Version of 1 Corinthians 4:3. "But with me it is a very small thing, that I should be judged of you, or of man's judgment. Yea, I judge not mine own self." Unquote. So it's only used twice in the King James Version. Continuing, helm, whithersoever, the governor. Let's look at governor. James only uses the governor, the Greek word, one time, yet it is used 18 times in the New Testament, all of which are referring to a position in leadership politics. This is the only time that I see it being used that seems to refer to a person, and now it's starting to look like it's referring to a person in position of authority So let's take a look at the definition. Okay, according to the concordance, this Greek word is only used twice in this regard. It's used here by James, and it's used by John in John 1:23. Reading from the King James Version, quote, "He said, I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness, make straight the way of the Lord, as said the prophet Elias," unquote. According to the Strong's Concordance, it means to make straight, level, plain, to lead or guide straight, to keep straight or direct. So the governor is not referring to a person as the other times it was used. It's referring to keeping something made straight. Let's look at the parsing of this. This was written in the present tense, so it is simply a statement of fact or reality viewed as occurring in actual time. It's in the active voice, so it represents the subject or the doer or the performer of the action. And it's in participle mood, so it's either ing or ed. The governor, so make it straight. Continuing, listeth. And this is the end of the parsing of the Greek. Let's look at John Gill. Quote, "Behold also the ships, which though they be so great," unquote, "of so large a bulk or such a prodigious size, and are such unwieldy vessels," quote, "and are driven of fierce winds," unquote, "with great vehemency, rapidity, and swiftness," quote, "yet they are turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth," unquote. The helm or tiller of a ship is a beam or piece of timber fastened into the rudder, and so coming forward into the steerage, which he that stands at the helm steers the ship, who is here called the governor, or he that directs. As the word may be rendered, that is, that steers, the word for helm is translated rudder in Acts 27 verse 40, reading from the King James Version, quote, "And when they had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves unto the sea, and loosened the rudder bands, and hoisted up the mainsail to the wind, and made towards shore," unquote.